To Hank Games Without Hank. My name is John Green, and today we are playing Tottenham Hotspur at White Hart Lane. I think that's what their stadium is called. I apologize if not. Anyway, point being, we are away to Tottenham. They are a very good team. They're one of the best teams in the Premier League. We're going to have a tough time winning this game, and also our guys are exhausted because we've played 3 games in 5 days. It's getting down to the end of the season, and at the end of the season, it's always trouble for us, particularly when we're still in one of the knockout tournaments, because we don't have a particularly deep squad. Even though we have 4 players more than we had last season when we had to start goalkeepers at the end of the season in order to try to prevent injury, where, we're going to be in, it's going to be tough. So we're going to do our best in this game. If I were you guys, I wouldn't, a draw would be a really good result here, basically. Today I'm going to talk about how to argue, mostly by talking about kind of how not to argue, at least in my opinion. This is all just my opinion. The first thing that I would say is that in order to have an argument, whether it's on the internet or with someone you love, it's really important, if you're going to have a productive conversation, it's really important to recognize the legitimacy of other people's narratives. It's really, really important not to start from the belief that other people are either A, idiots, or B, dishonest, or C, evil. As a rule, people, of course there are exceptions to this, but as a rule, people are not evil. We all participate in evil systems, but as a rule, we are not. That should be my throw-in, but it's not, because life is hard and full of disappointment. As a rule, people are not malicious actors. Their beliefs do not come from a place of wanting to destroy anyone. And when you do nothing but attack at each other, it starts to feel like bullying for all involved, which is sad. And I'm not saying I'm innocent of any of this, by the way. I'm just saying how I think we should argue, not the way that I always do argue. But when you don't recognize sort of the legitimacy of another person's story and belief system, or at least the consistency of it, and the reasons at which they arrived at it, and you just dismiss them as being ignorant or whatever, all you do is make it impossible to have meaningful dialogue with that person, because all you've really done is you've removed them from the conversation by being dismissive of them. So I'll give you an example of this. I believe that the Earth is more than 6,000 years old. And I'm not saying that to be like condescending or anything, but that is, I believe that. Early on in the Vlogbrothers experiment, I made a video in which I basically made fun of young Earth creationists. I basically associated it with I associated it with anti-intellectualism, but in a snarky, not compassionate, not thoughtful way. And it was really instructive and important for me to do that, because a lot of very nice people emailed us or left comments saying that their feelings had been hurt, and that they felt very excluded from this conversation because they were young Earth creationists. And it really surprised me, because of course in my mind I had thought that, like, I didn't think that our community was that big of a tent. But what I realized was that by being dismissive like that and presumptuous like that, all I had done was remove them from the conversation. It wasn't like we could then have a talk about how important the scientific method is to me, and how core to my belief system, the process of, I apologize. The process of hypothesis and experiment and conclusion is, and how, like how I think there's this overwhelming body of evidence based on that worldview that tells us that that the Earth is, that the universe is very, very old indeed. I couldn't say any of those things because I had just been dismissive, and so that is all that. You don't want to remove people from a conversation, because then you will never, then you've lost the opportunity to talk to that person about anything, not just about whether the Earth is 6,000 years old. You've lost the opportunity to talk to them about anything. And there are probably going to be many ways in which you're going to really enjoy talking to that person, and you're going to get a lot out of those conversations. But you've lost that opportunity forever, but because of being dismissive. And that doesn't mean that you have to think in any way that like the Earth is only 6,000 years old, or that there's a justification for believing that I have to take this shot. This is the best shot I have ever had in my career to score a goal from. It has to be. It almost was. Oh, but it wasn't. That was clearly the best chance I've ever had to score from a free kick. Look how close. Actually, it wasn't very close. That was not. I could have done better. I was just so excited about the opportunity. Oh, this is a good opportunity, and it's in! It's in! It's John Green! I love him! Oh! He's big, he's tough, he has a majestic puff. Other John Green! Yes! What a he's a finisher. Great, oh, we're up on Tottenham. This is huge. If we win this game, we've got to go to the top 4. We've got to. We've got to be there. And it's halftime. Oh, it was basically the last kick of the game. Other John Green, the heart of our team. He was out for 50 days and 50 nights, but he's back and he's full of courage. Oh, I love it. I love seeing Tottenham walk off the field disappointed at halftime. That is beautiful stuff. So our boys are exhausted. I've got to make a couple of substitutions here. I'm concerned about I was particularly concerned about that. So I'm going to take off other John Green. We're going to have D. McGoldrielocks and Stone Cold Steve with a C. Austin up front. I know that's a weak striking partnership. They've never worked together, but and Stone Cold Steve with a C. Austin, who are we kidding, is probably hungover. But I need to do it just to protect the John Greens. So we're just going to try to protect our lead here, and hope for the best. That was a great, that was great stuff. So the second thing that I would say, in addition to the importance of recognizing the legitimacy of other people's narratives and not removing them from the conversation, is that, in my experience, when you're having an argument with someone, it is best to clearly state your position, but not try to like overwhelm the argument with statistics. I've become a big believer in the tyranny of statistics. I'm reminded of the great Mark Twain quote that there are 3 kinds of lies, damned lies, and statistics. Statistics feel very much like you can't argue against them, and they feel very inviolable in some ways. But the truth is a lot more complicated than that, which is that statistics can be read in a lot of different ways, and it isn't even with good statistical analysis, it isn't always clear what's causing what. And so I don't think it's fair to just be like, well, we know this is true because of X, Y, and Z, and that's the end of the discussion. You have to, obviously, anecdotes are not. While I do think we think in narratives, anecdotes are not kind of the key to understanding something either. Oh, D. McGoldrielocks, but you can't. I don't think in the end I don't think in the end you're going to win any hearts by being like, well, we know this because of X, Y, and Z, and that's the end of the argument. The truth is that almost all of these discussions, particularly when you're talking about political stuff or you're talking about, whether I've been really disappointed with the quality of conversation in Crash Course comments a lot, because there are a few people who are just basically professional provocateurs, and I was like that, by the way, as an internet commenter in my youth, especially in high school. But I think just mere provocation is not an interesting way to have a conversation, and I get really disappointed by people who just make provocative, sort of bold, big statements that aren't really very defensible. Like, for instance, that all interesting intellectual developments after 1500 came out of Europe or the United States. That's not true. So I think the best way to argue is also the sort of most difficult way to argue, which is that you have to have an appreciation for nuance, and you have to be able to embrace complexity and nuance, and understand that was a great pass by Tottenham, and understand that in these conversations, no one is going to be entirely right as long as everyone is in the business of making. Oh, off the post! Oh, that was scary. That was scary. As long as everyone is in the business of making big, bold statements. So I really think where the conversation has to lie is not in big, broad arguments about X or Y or Z, but instead about nuanced and thoughtful readings of these various questions, whether they're about politics or religion or history or whatever it is. Let's talk with nuance and respect, instead of talking in broad generalizations that are intended to be provocative. Now, that is, of course, he's right there. Oh, he was wide open. That is the exact opposite of the way that cable television has taught us to talk, which is that, there are two sides to every issue, and person one must be on side one and person two must be on side two, and never the twain shall meet, because then the show would be over. But that whole business of arguing angrily and screaming at each other accomplishes absolutely nothing, because you can hear it right there in the language we use to talk about it. We talk about screaming at each other, whereas we talk about talking with one another. Screaming at each other. Oh, Ricardo Bunsen-Berna finally saves off a header, which he couldn't do in our last game. Talking at each other accomplishes nothing. Talking with each other can accomplish a great deal. And so I that's how I believe. Oh, no! Aaron Lennon in the 90th minute! Gah! Oh, so that's how you argue, but this isn't how you win a freaking Swoodly Poopers game. Last kick of the game. Freaking annoying. Freaking super annoying. Oh. Giving up those 2 points is just going to be huge for us. You're going to give me a yellow card for hugging? Jesus. Angry. All right. Yeah. So anyway, that's my call to do a better job of having conversations on the internet, which I have to say Nerdfighteria is unusually good at. So thank you all very much for making the internet a more fun place for me. We scored at the end of the first half. They scored at the end of the second half. Devastation in Swindon Town as we have our second straight draw. 4 lost points that could have meant everything at the end of the season. We'll see. Best wishes.